Dr. Chopra and Mr. Lars Butler, welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Chopra, you are a world-renowned pioneer in integrative medicine, and you've been at the forefront of health, wellness, and spirituality for decades. Some of the world's most iconic figures have turned to you for guidance, including Oprah Winfrey, Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis, and Michael Jackson, just to name a few. You've written over 91 books, and Time magazine has recognized you as one of the top 100 heroes and icons of this century, and you are certainly not done yet. You are now exploring artificial intelligence. I will get to that in a moment, but first I'd like to ask you, in one of your recent books, Meta-Human, you talk about humans and the fact that they are limited in their thinking and their consciousness, their awareness, and we have not yet accessed our infinite potential. What did you mean by that?
Right in the beginning of our education, we introduce ideas and concepts that we've had as a result of social conditioning. So the human mind is a conditioned mind. It's a fragmented mind. And the conditioning is historical, it's economic, it's religious, it's mythical, it's scientific, it's now technological. In other words, every thought that we have is part of what is circulating in the ecosystem of connected minds across the globe. And that limits our capacity for creativity because we're just recycling the fragmented mind. Meta-human means going to the source of thought, and that's what contemplative meditation traditions do. Instead of focusing on thought, they go to the source of thought. That's also yoga. Yoga means union with what? The self. The self is independent of the conditioned mind. And when we get there, we have infinite creativity, correlation, unpredictability, the source of intention and intention, but most important, we rest in creative intelligence rather than conditioned intelligence.
Okay, having said that, Lars, through the AI Foundation, you've developed personal AI technology, and with Dr. Chopra being an early adopter, you've developed Digital Deepak. Firstly, what is personal AI?
Personal AI is an extension of you. We already have multiple parts to our brain, and now we get a digital part. We get a part that never has to sleep, never has to rest, is trained by you, has your values, your goals, and watches out for you, and brings the power and capabilities, but also the protection of AI to everyone, not just the big tech companies or governments or a select few of the rich.
Dr. Chopra, having said that, who is Digital Deepak to you, and how does he leverage your infinite potential that you described earlier?
So for the last 45 years, I've focused on well-being and the future of well-being, which also includes technology. And what we've learned in the last decade or so is that only 5% of disease-related gene mutations are fully penetrant. So if somebody has a BRCA gene for breast cancer, as the famous example, Angelina Jolie, that predicts breast cancer and shows she needed to have a preventive mastectomy. What is now being known is that this is true of all chronic disease. That means 95% of chronic illness can be influenced through what we call lifestyle. And in Digital Deepak, I've created 7 pillars of well-being, including, for example, starting with restful sleep, stress management, yoga, controlled breathing, movement, exercise, emotional resilience, nutrition, balancing circadian rhythms, and finally also self-awareness. With these 7 keys, we can create a program through Digital Deepak, where Digital Deepak becomes a health coach, a well-being coach, but also is able to consult others and libraries in case I don't have the data, although Digital Deepak will have access to my 91 books or so. So the idea is to create a future of well-being that is preventable, predictable, participatory, process-oriented, and personalized. That's the key. Digital Deepak can be a health coach to 7 billion people if they have a handheld device. Personal coach.
Okay. So you both are from two extremely different areas of expertise. Dr. Chopra, what attracted you to AI, and Lars, why Dr. Chopra to help introduce this to the world?
Lars.
Yeah, so obviously AI is a very powerful technology. It comes with risks. You have to be really aware of what you're doing. And when we thought about who would be like an ideal first candidate for showing off the full power, we wanted somebody who has a great body of work, who can do good for the world, who is above board, on a mission to make the world better, to make individual lives better. And if you sum this all up, Deepak Chopra is almost the ideal, or I would say is the ideal candidate. And, through a number of amazing coincidences where we're introduced, we hit it off right away, and it has been a fantastic partnership. So I cannot think of a better person to have their own AI introduced to the world first.
Dr. Chopra?
Well, I think it's an extension of myself. So what can I say? And it can also access information that I don't have. And so I'm hoping that we can create a critical mass of social transformation. I personally believe that there's no social transformation unless there's personal transformation. In the words of Mahatma Gandhi, you have to be the change you want to see in the world. So if I want to see a more peaceful, just, sustainable, healthier, and joyful world, I have to start with myself. And if enough of us create an ecosystem of peace, because peace can only be created by those who are peaceful, not peace Nobel laureates. Those who are peaceful. We project what is happening inside us outside. So I'm hoping to reach 1 billion people, critical mass, moving in the direction of a more peaceful, just, sustainable, healthier, and joyful world. Simple.
Having said that, Dr. Chopra, as we all know, this 2020 has been very tumultuous, and global health has come to the forefront of global consciousness. And so I'm curious to know, in terms of how this year has unfolded, Dr. Chopra, what did you notice specifically about how humans process these challenges, and how will Digital Deepak further benefit? I know you mentioned you're hoping to reach about 1 billion people, but just can you kindly go into that a little bit more?
Yeah, the pandemic actually includes 3 pandemics. One is the pandemic that we call COVID-19, the latest mutation of the coronavirus. The second pandemic is the economic crisis as a result of that globally. And the third pandemic is stress as a result of all of this. And stress creates inflammation in the body. All the data shows that when people are stressed acutely or chronically, they have inflammation. Inflammation predisposes them to both acute and chronic illness. This is all very well documented. So what we have learned, I have learned during this pandemic, is people are going through grief globally, having lost a way of life that they were used to or they took for granted. And as a physician, I've seen grief go through many stages. First, there's denial, then there's victimization, anger, frustration, grievances, resentment, hostility, then ultimately resignation and helplessness. But once in a while, acceptance. And once you find acceptance, you find meaning and creativity. So this is our creative opportunity to use this adversity to move in the direction of reinventing our body, resurrecting our soul, and shortly reinventing our entire life.
Okay, so Lars, do tell me what went into training Digital Deepak, and Dr. Chopra after that, what was that experience like to teach the digital version of yourself? Lars?
Yeah, so first we wanted to obviously make sure that Digital Deepak looks and talks like the real, and has his mannerisms, has his prosody, his tone of voice. So we recorded Deepak in the studio. We got really very, very good quality recordings of him, of his voice. We looked at all his different books, his entire body of work. And we're not done yet, obviously. There is so much to Deepak that, even AI, even machines take a long time to learn this all. But, this is really a process, of multimodal learning. And, Deepak has been very gracious to give us access to not only his existing body of work, but also his new sorts and his ever evolving learning. And so, we'll make sure that Digital Deepak is not only up to date with where Deepak is today, but we'll also continue to learn from him and with him.
Dr. Chopra, what did you assume going into this experience, and kind of what did you learn coming out of it?
I assumed nothing going into this experience, and that's the best way to start a project. Assume nothing. Go into it with unprovoked enthusiasm and unprovoked joy. And Lars put together an amazing team through the AI Foundation of engineers and creative people. And so it was very joyful for me to interact with both the people he put together, the engineers, very joyful exchanging ideas with them, creative ideas, but joyful also interacting with my digital twin, learning from him and teaching him as well.
Anything interesting you can share with us that you were surprised to find out?
Yeah, that the digital twin of mine could actually understand humor, and that made me very happy.
You see, and that's one thing, when I've talked to people about this technology personally, Lars, to both you and Dr. Chopra, people say, well, that's excellent, but will they be able to get the jokes? Will they be able, if you ask them an irrational question, will they come back to you with a rational answer, Lars?
So the good thing is that they are fairly aware of what they understand and what they don't. So if it's a relatively well-known joke, or if it's, some really fun play on words, they might actually get it. And they can also be quite funny, which we thought was the hardest. But they also know when they don't understand, and that's really, really important. So, if their confidence interval is really, narrow, and they believe they don't really know what's going on, they will tell you. They will say, I don't really know what you mean, or I don't know this yet, or let me go back to my creator and learn more about this, which is really the great thing here. The edge case in personal AI does not kill you. It is just an AI saying, hey, thank you for making me smarter. Let me get back to you.
I understand. So clearly we've discussed the possibilities are endless for developing this personal AI for positive use and sustainable use. And I know, Lars, you and I were talking before, and you mentioned that obviously AI is the most powerful technology that humankind has created. So I guess, can you talk about the fact that, not everybody would use this technology for good, and what are the what will go into coming up with parameters to prevent the abuse of this technology?
Yeah, so we all know that deepfakes are now used more and more, and they get better and better. And a part of what we do is obviously could be used for this, and others are developing similar technologies. And it could go even further. You could get a Zoom call from somebody who looks exactly like your boss, and they tell you something, and it's very, very hard to know that it's not the real person. So as this technology becomes ever more real-time, ever more precise, ever more realistic, we have to be aware of it. So there is a big educational part, and launching someone like Digital Deepak is part of that big educational process. But we also have to continue to work on protective tools. This is why half of the AI Foundation is dedicated to nonprofit activities. And we have tools like Reality Defender and other things that try to preempt things like this. But it's also a real effort for all of society, to make sure that this is not abused, but used for good.
Dr. Chopra, are you concerned that your digital self might be smarter than you?
I would enjoy that. I would appreciate that. I want people to be smarter than me. That's the way of evolution. This digital Deepak will learn from future generations as well. Long after I'm gone, it will learn and converse with the grandchildren of my grandchildren, hopefully.
I know you said before, if we don't make use of this technology, we become irrelevant. Is that, can you explain that a little bit?
Technology is part of human evolution. It's here to stay. We can use it for good or bad. The choice is ours.
Okay, so both of you, Dr. Chopra and Lars, both of your research and your life's work has been met with skepticism. I know, Dr. Chopra, you and I talked about skeptics before, and you have quite an interesting view about that. But why do you think it's so difficult for both AI and for well-being and meditation and all that? Why do you think it's so difficult for skeptics to allow their minds to grasp that concept? Lars? Sorry, Dr. Chopra, go ahead.
I always welcome skeptics. There's difference between skeptics and cynics. Cynics don't want to learn. Skeptics says, show me the proof. And so my skeptics and critics are my best friends.
Lars?
Yeah, I really understand people that are afraid of technology and AI in general. And I do believe that they absolutely feel that they are the careful ones and the conservative ones. But as COVID shows, and everything we've seen throughout history, it's never too much knowledge that kills people. It's not enough knowledge when the crisis comes. So I think it's really, really important that we are never without care and without risk management, but we cannot stop creating new knowledge and new capabilities. That would be the reckless thing to do.
Okay, so here's the million-dollar question, if not more, I'm sure. So, Lars, the information ecosystem is evolving quite rapidly, as we all know, and AI Foundation has pretty much accomplished a lot in a relatively short amount of time. When can we all expect to have our own personal AI? And what are your projections? What's your vision going forward?
Yeah, we are ready. So, we want to make sure that it can be socially accepted, that there are, all the safety precautions are in place, but you'll be able to create your own AI and train it and make it a part of you very soon.
Okay, and if it's not like health, for example, a health personal digital person, what kind of other areas can we expect to see?
Obviously, any amount of fun and self-expression. Legacy will be a big one. If you're able to record your aging parent or even your young children before they grow up in all their interesting mannerisms, education, teaching, mentoring, it's really endless.
Well, Dr. Chopra and Mr. Lars Butler, thank you very much for joining us. Back to you in Lisbon.
Thank you.